Thank you, Charlie. And I have to tell you, I think Charlie had the toughest job today, announcing all the elected officials, and you did a great job with that. And it really is an honor to be part of the team at San Jacinto College. And I say every day that it is absolutely the best job where you can really see the impact that you're making in lives. And I can also tell you, our elected officials that are here with us, they serve in those roles because they care about our community. And they take that role very, very seriously, and we've all seen that. And so, again, I'm really honored to be the moderator of this panel. And so, I guess if we looked at the 87th legislative session, we'd probably say it was interesting, right? A little different. Yeah. I don't know if those of you who were at the Capitol, it just had a different feel about it. And so, there was a lot of work that was accomplished. And there's more work, I guess, that needs to be done because you got 2 special sessions, or at least some special sessions ahead of you. But we're going to focus on what got accomplished during the 87th session. And so I'm going to spend some time introducing our guests, and then I'm going to tell you how things will flow for today. And so, all right, so this is how things are going to flow for the next, all right, so Senator Alvarado, we're going to start with you. And this question is about Senate Bill 900 that you sponsored related to above ground storage tanks. And we know this has been a concern for many of our constituents in our area, especially after the ITC fire. And we want you just to tell us about the legislation. How will it impact our community? How will it impact our businesses?
Thanks for having us. And Brenda, you and your team do such a good job, so it's very easy to get off the floor and come see you because y'all are partners with all of us and you do such good work. So it really is a pleasure to team up with y'all on many issues, and thank you to everyone who's out here. I'm happy to join this panel again. We were all together, I think, was it last week? So we may start this like a show, take this on tour around the state maybe. But I enjoy working with everyone up here. Trust me, you have a very good delegation who is extremely effective at the Capitol. So the bill that I passed, SB 900, this was a result from the ITC fire in Deer Park. And during the process of the investigation of the fire, we learned that the state does not regulate the above ground storage tanks. I know Representative Bettis, she's worked on this issue too in the House, and I want to thank her for being a co-sponsor in the House. So this, it directs the TCEQ to establish a bulk storage vessel performance standards program. We worked very closely with industry, with the Pipeline Association, with the Texas Chemical Council, and with the Texas Oil and Gas Association. This was a very tough task to get everybody on board. And when you can get all 3 of those associations with competing interests, it's quite an accomplishment. But it took, even before we went into session, to start working on this. So I'm very pleased about it. A couple of the things, the highlights of the bill, first of all, if these things had been in place, I think the fire at ITC maybe wouldn't have happened, or it would have lasted a lot shorter of a time period than it did. But it has 3 primary safety measures. It includes the removal of the shut-off valves, an overfill protection, and fire suppression technology. And these were things that were noted in that particular fire that had those been in place, they could have saved a lot of property. So I'm very happy about the bill and look to continuing to work on issues like that.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Any comments from any of the other legislators around that bill? No? Okay. All right, so live longer, memory care and Alzheimer's become a reality for many families. And you sponsored Senate Bill 383, which is trying to address this issue and brings guidelines to facilities as to who may use these terms in reference to the nursing home or senior facility. So please explain exactly what the bill does, how do you think it goes? Does it go far enough in helping to create some of these guidelines, and who's it protecting?
Thank you, Brenda. First, let me say thank you very much to everyone for being here and for having us up here at the panel. I do think it's very important that everyone get to know what happened in this 87th legislative session. You know, one thing I will agree with Senator Alvarado on is that you have a really great delegation. The best thing is that I don't think any of us sit on the same committees, so you got someone looking out for you in almost every different committee, and you can always go to them for help and say, hey, I need this, and this is, we need to work on this. And we probably my favorite thing about this session was how much I worked with different people. I did the Senate Bill 900 with Carol Briscoe. How many did we work on? Maybe 2 or 3 different bills that we worked on. I worked on one with Ed Thompson. So the best thing about this is that we're able to work across lines and do what's best for the people in our districts. So thank you very much for having us. And now to your question.
Okay.
Sorry. Currently has about 400,000 individuals who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Texas ranks second in the number of Alzheimer's deaths in the country. And as the numbers of cases rise in the state, so does the need for nursing homes and assisted living facilities that can provide adequate care for patients. Although it's not required, facilities can choose to obtain a certification from the state to specifically care for these people. Like, they have to play certain mind games with them. They have to have their doors locked. They have to have a better ratio. So there are a number of things that come along with that state certification. So what this bill did is it has to, these facilities now have to have a disclosure that states whether or not they're certified. So that way when you're leaving your loved ones, at least you know what the facility, whether they're certified or whether they're not. And you can be more specific. But I think it's important for families who are leaving the care of their loved ones to these homes to be certain that their loved ones will properly be taken care of. Those seeking care should be given full disclosure in order to make an informed decision. So in terms of it going far enough, I don't think so. I think it's a great step in the right direction, but we still have a lot of work to do. But, okay. So it's certainly a good start.
Thank you. Any comments from any of the members? What's in the state budget bill and how will impact the Bay Area, Houston area? So specifically how that budget will impact Bay Area, Houston. And then are there items that you feel are important for BAHEP members to know about regarding the budget bill?
Yeah, the budget turned out extremely well, much to the benefit of our whole region and our community. So if you take a step back and you think about what the world looked like about a year ago, there was deep concern about where we would be from a fiscal perspective. And there had been a projection that for the current budget cycle, we might be as much as $4.5 billion short. That'd be $4.5 billion we'd have to come up with to close out the current budget. And then when you compare one budget to the next, we thought we might have as much as $20 billion less available to us for the next budget, the one that we're putting together for the next 2 years, than what we had had in the current budget cycle. So that was very daunting. And then to add to the complexity of the situation, it was rapidly changing. And we had, which was a blessing, we had a lot of support through the CARES Act for the federal government, but it added a layer of complexity that was extremely unusual. And then this was against the backdrop of my first time to actually chair that committee. So it was a pretty interesting assignment, but things turned out beautifully. The people of the state have had the wisdom to put into our state constitution that we will never appropriate more money than we actually have to spend, and we do that faithfully each time, and we did that once again. We're also within our population inflation growth in this budget, and yet we ended up with state general revenue that was actually somewhat above where it had been in the current cycle for the next biennium, and that allowed us to do some really good things. Many of you will remember House Bill 3, which was the really transformational, once-in-a-generation change in how we fund our public schools. And there was a huge commitment to pub ed, and a lot of the critics at that time said, that's great, but what are you going to do when that commitment grows next time? What are you going to do if you have a bad budget cycle or a recession? And well, it all happened at once, and we fully funded that commitment, which was huge. We held our schools harmless with respect to kids that were not in school, largely as a consequence of the pandemic. And then there was over $16 billion in federal relief to help with remediation from the COVID loss. And I do want to quickly say our schools in our region, I couldn't be more proud of. And keeping kids in the classroom, getting them back into the classroom has been huge. Those areas where maybe 20 to 25% of the student population was back in have done really poorly. But there will still be a huge need across the state, including our community, to help kids recover from the last year and a half, which has been really tough. Higher ed, we fully funded enrollment growth for our general academics and the HRIs. We also maintained our current level of tuition supports. We funded our NASA program. So BAHEP partners with NASA and Texas A&M and has an aerospace scholars program. There's also a Space Alliance Technology Outreach program, and those remain really strong and healthy. There's a couple $100 million for the coastal spine. I think you're going to hear from Representative Paul, who partnered with Senator Taylor in championing that, which is incredibly important for us in this community. And then finally, I think we'll talk a bit more about it later. You mentioned pensions, and I'm not assigned to the pension committee, but I did carry a critical piece of legislation that really it restores fiscal sanity to our state pension. And then in the prior session, I think what you were referring to was the teachers' retirement system pension was in a precarious position, and I carried legislation to help restore that. So it was a really great session from a fiscal perspective, very responsible, and yet met the needs of our community.
Great, thank you. Any comments from anybody?
Real quick, in the list of the things that Greg took care of us also was the $10 million for the Spaceport Trust Fund, which also was hopefully we'll be able to get that used at the Spaceport in Houston. So, thank you, Greg.
And that's why we work together, because I could not every day. Is it in there? Is it in there? So, so kudos to Representative Paul for staying on top of that. And yes, we were able to get that done.
So the committee, was there anything in the appropriations bill that was cut that you wish had stayed in?
Sure, I was tipped off to that question.
Okay, good.
Well, look, my response was that we started with such, I don't want to say low expectations, but with such concern for the fiscal position of the state, that to end where we did was huge. Mm-hmm. And so I saw it as all positive in the end. I mean, there wasn't anything that I look back now and say, wow, that was a big miss, or that was terrible. I'm so thankful for the things we were able to get done, and that we came out of this, really with a very strong budget. And as you mentioned in the beginning, near unanimous support in both chambers. Right. So I couldn't be more pleased, and when you consider the backdrop of the economic circumstances and the pandemic, it was a huge success.
Great, thank you. All right, Representative. No, this is a very important issue for our area. Your leadership on the coastal issues, and you really spent a lot of time working on the coastal barrier protection system. And we want to hear about what the bill does in creating this Gulf Coast Protection District. I know several of the members that just got appointed to the governor are here in the audience. And what will it really do for the Bay Area?
Yeah, sure. It was, well, first of all, thanks again also for having me here and be a part of this with y'all. I was a member of BAHEP for years, so sitting out in the audience watching one of these, so I'm glad to be here and participating with y'all, and thank you for everything that you do and the issues that y'all come up and talk on and promote on. I mean, they're so vital, so thank you all what y'all do. It's a great organization. Is one of those things that BAHEP has fought for years is this getting this coastal barrier protection district done. The federal government has needed a district that they could contract with and be the local sponsor if they do go ahead and fund this coastal barrier project that we've been working on since Hurricane Ike in 2008, 13 years. To try to get something done with this, and we finally got what we needed to do. The feds kept telling us, if we don't take care of this, we're not going to give you any money, and so we're able to get it done and do it. The other thing that this did, to be clear, and I'll go into more detail of the district, but there was 2 other projects that were already funded, that the Congress had funded in the Sabina-Galveston program, which is one in Jefferson County, one in Orange County, that this district will also incorporate those 2 ongoing projects and oversee those and make sure that they get constructed and built and maintained, as well as hopefully the future Galveston Bay Protection System that we so desperately want to get done. So that was the purpose of it, those 2 things, to make sure we had an entity that could work with the federal government as well as also take care of the ones that were funded. The district's got 11 board members, 6 are appointed by the governor, 5 by the 5 counties that are present: Galveston, Chambers, Galveston, Orange, and Jefferson. The governor's made his appointees, and I know at least 2 of them are here. Bob Mitchell is one, and Michelle Bechtel. We're the ever-present Michelle Bechtel. And these 2 gentlemen, just so y'all know, are just tremendously worked so hard on making sure we get this done. And also a shout out to Senator Taylor. I know he'd love to be here to talk about this. That we have worked together for many years on this, and then especially this session, negotiating, as you can imagine, negotiating with 5 different counties, numerous water districts, the members that are going to be a part of something as large as this and as important as this. And just keep perspective too, this is going to be the largest single engineering project that the federal government's ever done. Much bigger than Hoover Dam, Golden Gate Bridge, everything that they've done. So, well, all right, not NASA, all right. But, you know, so it's going to be just fascinating to see this thing go forward. I mean, it's been something that is a dream of mine even before I was ever in the legislature. When we ran in 2014, this was an issue that we campaigned on to get it done. And now we finally see the efforts of our labor at the state level, and now we all go forward to the federal government and start working them to make sure that we get what's done. The federal government will get its money back in one storm. We even just, Hurricane Ike, the federal government spent over $30 billion. So we're not going to spend $30 billion on this barrier, but they would get that back with one storm. And then, of course, if Ike was just a little bit over, a few miles over, it could have been even more devastating. The destruction to the economy of our region and our nation would be immense. Almost a third of the entire state's economy is going to be behind this coastal barrier. Maybe 10% of the United States' gross domestic product. So this is critical to what we're doing, and I just want to thank every person here. I know every member on this panel was supportive, and thank all y'all that were there helping us over the years. The local governments that all passed resolutions of support, the districts, the chambers that all came in and said that we wanted to get this done. So I want to say thank you, and thank y'all for what y'all done. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So I'm not going to ask if there's any rebuttals anymore. I'm just going to let you jump in if you got anything, okay? All right. All right, I want to make sure any rebuttals on that one, though, before I go to my new rules.
He's thinking.
Okay. All right. So, represent several pieces of legislation and chaired the Elections Committee. And we want to know, in your opinion, what's the greatest accomplishment from the bills you sponsored this session?
Those are good questions. I'm sure, by the way, a lot of new faces. I may be a new face here. Maybe you're probably wondering how old I am. And yeah, it's, you know, right, exactly. Right. So, I mean, frankly, I'll be 37 this year, and it's a surprise, and you remember wondering how. And so growing up in Deer Park, Texas, I actually drink the tap water and breathe the air. And so believe it or not, there's a magic there. Yeah. It's true. Some people complain about it, but it was great being told by my parents who work in the industry that that's the smell of money. During elections was fun. So while everybody wanted to be Dr. Bonin's friend this session, I got put in a position where members generally don't want to do it more than once of chairing elections. And one thing I would say is, while we've been kind of trained to recognize this idea that DC is unworkable, I think we're almost, in a way, the media is trying to make you think that Austin is the same way and that we don't work together. Believe it or not, this region's pretty blessed. There's a lot of regions out there, due to their population size, that only have one state rep or one senator, and you've got a group working hard. Plus, you've got the chair of appropriations being a Gulf Coast person, and frankly, the last two speakers have been from the Gulf Coast, including this one. So I would say you're in safe hands. Trent elections was exciting, partly why we may be going back for a special session. But one of the things I'm kind of excited about would be COVID protections for businesses. We're still seeing a lot of people kind of following mandates and other things just because they're concerned with litigation, whether they're allowed to. They'd like to open up, and we need to give kind of businesses the ability to feel a little more free coming out of this pandemic, and so I'm excited about that. One of the fun ones, though, is working, I guess, with Mary Ann Perez. I know one of the next questions about another bill, but we're trying to work for the Houston firefighters to be able to let them go to arbitration. This is my opportunity to bash Houston, so there's that. You can imply my meaning. That big brother to the north of us, they could use some help, and we're kind of constantly having to fight those guys. I think we passed a bill by Dr. Bonin that went into law dealing with election fraud. Regarding elections, regardless of what you see in the media, Texas is unique. We have 254 counties that do things sometimes 254 different ways. The mayors and city councilmen here would know they're often not sure what the rule is when they're holding elections. I mean, y'all are often having to ask for opinions and go to the Secretary of State. So one of the main goals in a lot of things was to kind of standardize it and make it uniform so that people understood what things are, to make it predictable. And our goal going back in a special session would be to try and make things statewide and uniform so that people, regardless of the county they live in, whether it's Briscoe County with 1,200 people or here in Harris County, that we have similar rules and it's predictable. And so that'll be a mission going back in, but happy to be here.
Okay. And I do want to say, Representative Perez, we were meeting outside the House floor one day and it was voting and brought up, we're going to start again with you, Senator Alvarado. And this question is around Senate Bill 678 relating to the creation of the Small Business Disaster Recovery Loan Program. And so tell us why you felt this bill was important and what it does and how businesses can access it.
Sure, and these are issues I think we ought to all strive to work on. These ought to be priorities every session. How can we stimulate the economy? How can we grow jobs and make sure that our state is fiscally fit? But this bill came to me recognizing that a lot of our small businesses were hurting even before the pandemic. Some were still recovering from Harvey or Imelda or just any rainstorm that damaged their business, and that happens a lot here in our area. And then also seeing that sometimes in DC things can be a little slow and trickling down to our state and to the ground. So the bill sets up the infrastructure, the foundation for a small business disaster recovery loan fund. We did not put money in it because things are tight, not because Dr. Bonin wouldn't let us. But the main goal, and I did not ask him for any money, but the main goal of this was to set it up, tee it up. And if we have another disaster that's declared by the governor, these will be low financed, short-term bridge loans to small businesses to help them keep their employees working, to pay payroll. So that way they're not having to file for unemployment, and they can keep people employed and on insurance. So we know that, for example, here in Harris County, in the beginning of 2021, of this year, small businesses, their revenue in our county decreased by 36% compared to the year before, and the number of small businesses in Harris County decreased by 32%. So there's a lot of need, and we know that the PPP program helped a lot of people, but we did hear that some of the small mom and pop businesses didn't quite get what they needed from there. So hopefully with this plan put in place, we can provide that bridge loan, that short-term and quick assistance.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comment? Representative Perez, you authored a bill about skimming at gas pumps, and it was one you were very passionate about. And explain what the bill is about, what it does, and what does it mean for people using their credit card at the gas pumps.
Okay. Thank you very much. HB 2106 was a continuation of the work that we started in the 86th legislative session. As many of my colleagues here know, sometimes when it's a very large bill, and it was a very large bill because it affected so many people, credit unions, banks, Pulse, food and fuel. I mean, there was just so many people that needed to weigh in on this. And so it doesn't always go exactly as you plan it. And so the next session, you're fixing it up and then getting it back out the door. And that's exactly what House Bill 2106 did. This was a great bill, now that it is finally finalized. It's a great bill, and probably maybe one of the fewest that this came out of the Senate 100% clean with 100% support, and came out of the House 100% clean and 100% vote. So that's really tough to do, believe it or not.
It is, but Mary Ann will hit you.
Briscoe quit telling our secrets. Anyway, so skimming is the use of electronic card devices to steal and record credit card information from unsuspecting consumers. It's a persistent issue for consumers, financial institutions, and motor fuel merchants. It only takes seconds to install a skimming device. After installation, a single compromised card reader can steal from 30 to 100 cards per day. Skimming costs the United States billions of dollars every year, and Texas makes up about 30 to 40% of that, resulting in hundreds of millions in annual financial losses. So what HB 2106 did, which was different from the one that I filed before, is it was the Attorney General was going to set the guidelines, and now the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations now has as rulemaking authority. Since they're over the gas pumps, it just made a little more sense. They have their people out there every day. So while they're there, they're also looking for skimmers. So this was another reason we gave it to licensing. But it also established the very first Financial Crimes Intelligence Center in the state of Texas, which I was very proud of. And thank you, Dr. Bonham, for giving me $3 million to get that done. But I'm really proud to see, Texas take the lead on combating this fast-growing crime and protecting the consumers.
Wow, great. Yeah. So you're getting jabbed over there with good, and then one time Representative Paul did the slicing, so I don't know, you're taking a lot of
He's a little jealous
Dr.
of the money.
Yeah, he kept telling me to slice all the things I asked him for.
I don't think I realize what a big deal it is what Representative Perez did. I assume probably most of you have actually had your credit card stolen from likely a gas pump, and how many of us are cautious before we use that gas pump? I know technology is also coming a long way that kind of helps prevent that, but gosh, I'm so happy because it's happened to me maybe more than once, or happened to my wife. I know it's happened to me, and you get concerned, like, is the seal on this pump broken? Am I about to have to redo my accounts all over again and all your auto pay stuff? So it's a big deal. Yeah. Great work.
And 100% clean and 100% support. I don't know if I've heard of a bill before like that. That's outstanding. So
it was pretty amazing. And the best thing that came out of that is that how many people have told me, every time I put my card, I think about you, and I start pulling on it. So it's made me a very popular person.
Good. Now we know why she passed that bill. She wants all her constituents to think of her every time they use it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
all right, the retirement system and the teacher retirement system. So what does this bill encompass, and what information would you like to provide about it?
Yeah, that was really, from a fiscal standpoint, one of the most important things that we did outside of the budget. So last session was when I worked on the teachers' retirement system. The legislation we passed this time applies specifically to state employees. We've got about 140,000 state employees and about 117,000 retirees, and the pension had a $14.7 billion unfunded liability, and that was accruing at about roughly $1.5 billion every 2 years, or $2 million a day, with no clear plan as to how to address that, and it was a very contentious issue. So we actually came up with a really long-term permanent solution, and I'm confident it not only fixed it, we just have to stay with it. So we took the $14.7 billion unfunded liability and we broke it out into annual level dollar payments. It's $510 million a year for the next 33 years, and that will completely eliminate the unfunded liability. And then the second key, of course, is to stop digging when you're in a hole. So we created a new structure for new hires, and it's a cash balance plan. It still provides for a guaranteed lifetime annuity, but it has gain sharing. So they will never get worse than 4% return on the balance in their plan. And then there's gain sharing up to an additional 3% for a maximum of 7%. The current plan has the employees contributing 9.5% of their paycheck, and it will go down to 6%. They previously vested in 10 years. They'll now, the new hires, be able to vest in 5 years. So this actually is a more competitive, more attractive option. And with the gain sharing, it'll prevent the state from accruing another huge liability. So we've received national recognition for confronting our pension problem, or that liability, head on. And that's a permanent fix. We will stick to it with those level dollar payments. But that was really a big deal from a fiscal perspective, and with our creditors from around the country.
Thank you. All right, Representative Paul, infrastructure that you had covered earlier, and how critical it is to Texas. Can you provide a brief overview of the reforms made to ERCOT and how those reforms will positively impact our state's power grid?
Okay, y'all said I got 32 minutes?
That's what I was thinking. There goes the rest of the panel.
Well, there's several bills that we did, and obviously the session was totally different kind of an animal, with COVID and all that. But right in the middle of what we were doing, and just when we were starting to get things going, we got hit with this enormous storm. And not only did we lose a whole week of the 20 weeks that we're there, 20 weeks we're only there, we lost a whole week. We had an enormous issue to try to deal with. Over 400-something bills were filed dealing with this winter storm, so it was a fast learning curve of getting things done, coming up with something and passing them and going through. So I just keep that in perspective, what we're doing. But some of the major things that we passed was Senate Bill 2 that totally revamped how the ERCOT board is set up and appointed. There's going to be 11 members on the board. They're going to be appointed by a separate committee that the governor, the lieutenant governor, speaker will appoint people to be on that committee to appoint them. They're going to have set requirements to make sure that they're qualified to be on that board. They also, one of those is going to have to be a Texan on the board. So no more of these people from out of state that will be on it. There's also, if you have a fiduciary purpose, if you're making money off of this, you can't be on the board. Where before it was a lot of industry type people were on there. So it's really a lot of oversight of the governance and how that's going to be operated and how it works, really strengthening that PUC oversight. That the chairman of ERCOT is also the chairman of the PUC now too. So there's going to be a lot more oversight there from the people. And of course the PUC is appointed by the governor. SB 3 was more the response of how do we get back to some of the issues that we're dealing with the storm. And they dealt with winterizing to make sure that there were things there to make sure that they could do it, making rules previously lengthening rolling blackouts to make sure how they could master that. A lot of the problems that we had were communication. How are they getting to us so we know? Last week we had this thing, they're telling us that we had to start your thermostats up because they thought something was happening, again, due to a fire at one of the nuclear power plants. So those kind of communication to make sure that most of y'all might not remember that ERCOT told us before the storm that there might be a problem, but none of us were watching that. Also ensuring that services necessary to provide power to Texas homes and businesses are budgeted for and protected from weather and emergencies. We also put in protections to make sure that businesses and communities, such as a hospital or folks home, can make sure that they're listed as critical agencies, to make sure that they're covered, or always make sure that they have power to do those on. So there's really a lot of good things in there to help go after what some of the issues were that was making up, that some of the problems that we identified, and address them. And a couple of the smaller bills House Bill 16 was done to protect the consumers from high electric bills by banning the sale of wholesale index products that were these products that you would get just like we did with the arms and the housing. This was making sure that, hey, I'm not going to buy this product because some people are educated consumers and some weren't, to make sure. House Bill 17 ensured homeowners, builders, and businesses have the ability to decide how best to meet their energy needs by preserving customer choice for their energy in Texas. House Bill 1510 provided the funding mechanism necessary to ensure winterization of Texas power grids. House Bill 1520 provides securitization financing for gas utilities to recover extraordinary costs from winter storms. So all different aspects of some of the situation that we addressed in the legislature. Now, it's strange seeing some of this in the Houston Chronicle saying we didn't do nothing. And we had an enormous amount of stuff done on this issue. And I also filed a bill to ask the Speaker to have an in-depth study to further study this and see what's going on, so we can have more time to in-depth study it during the interim and make sure that we have some good questions and answers on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Paul. You signed onto a bill with Representative Perez about the battleship Texas. I don't believe that bill passed, but what would it have done? Or did it pass and I'm wrong?
You know, I don't think Representative Perez and I are ready to give up yet, but it seems like it may be a losing fight. If I was in Vegas betting, it probably goes to Galveston, World of Sea Tourism, but look, we both, live there and would love to see the battleship Texas, stay where she's been for as long as she does. But we recognize it costs money, and Chairman Bonin didn't want to give us the money to fix it. So if anyone's upset about that, see him afterwards. But that was a fun one to be a lot of work. And what Representative Paul was discussing on this ERCOT stuff, one of the most common things we hear about, if right now, especially on Facebook, if one of us talks about, at least me, if we talk about anything other than legislatively that has anything to do with anything other than the electric grid, they're telling us to fix it. And I understand why the Cron might have been upset at you, but that's like wondering why, I don't know, credit card fraud didn't stop after the governor signed Marianne Perez's bill into play. And there's some of this, it takes a process for those things to happen, but I think we did a great job of getting the ball rolling. To give that, because of course, as a lot of industry folks here know, that kind of gives a stable environment for our economy. So you've done a great job. It's
right.
fun. It's fun being y'all's junior member underneath you guys.
Somebody has to be at that end.
All right, so again, 2.5 minutes, each of you can respond to it, and it will, what do you think was the worst bill that was passed this session? And what was the best bill that was passed? So who wants to jump in this first?
All my bills are the best bills.
Okay, who?
I'll start.
Okay, go.
I actually think the best bill that was passed this session was the budget. I think everyone had concerns as, oh my God, just like you do in your household, how am I going to make ends meet? I mean, there were no airlines taxes, no hotel taxes. I mean, we could go on. And it was such a bleak outlook that you just sat there and thought to yourself, I don't know how in the world we're going to do this. And this is our only real job that we have at the legislature. The only thing we have to do is we have to pass that balanced budget. So they could not have picked anyone better to chair that committee. He's been on that, I think, I know when I was on there, you were on there. So since your freshman year, have you been on there? So he had probably the toughest job than all of us, and he did it. He made it. It was a $246 billion budget. That's Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and that's very kind, and you kind of stole my thunder in the sense it is the only thing we're constitutionally required to do.
Sorry.
And so that was really important. Another part of the question, however, that was not asked was what was the most memorable moment, and I wouldn't say that it was a moment. But it segues into best and worst. And clearly the most memorable and the worst thing was the pandemic, by far. And it created a very unusual environment in January and in February. We weren't able to function and operate the way we normally would. And we were open, my office was available, but the volume of people coming in was a small fraction of normal. And our interactions on the floor of the House were minimal for the first couple of months. Even when we were there, we didn't spend a lot of time. And some people want to be critical of that, but the reality is the legislative process takes time. You have to get the bills filed, referred to committee, they have to have a public hearing, they go through that process. We don't get busy on the floor until later, but those first 2 months are when you build relationships. It's when you have more conceptual talks about what you're trying to accomplish and building, consensus around what you want to do. And so the worst part was missing out on a lot of that in January and February. The best part was the way we really rallied together, and things got better in March. And then by April and May, we were operating really normally and ended up with as productive a session as we've had. And I would just point out that around the country, there are still state legislatures that aren't meeting in person. And your Texas legislature got together and got it done and took a really unusual, difficult circumstance and closed with what I thought was a really normal, healthy, productive session. So that was both the most memorable and the worst and the best, all kind of combined into one. And there are a couple other things I did want to mention, because I represent Galveston County. A&M Galveston is getting an upgrade in their ship. They're obviously maritime is a big focus for them. There was just one catch. They didn't have a facility that could support that ship. So they received funding to build the dock that they need to accommodate this new vessel, which is going to be really big for all of us, but especially the south part of the county. And then, as you guys know, the north part of the county has grown in Galveston tremendously. I remember when League City and Friendswood probably didn't have more than 10 or 15,000 people apiece. Some of you are sitting there, yeah, I remember it was a lot smaller than that even. Now they're over 150,000. There's no driver's license office in the north part of Galveston County. So there's $14 million in the budget for DBS to put a driver's license office in League City to serve the north part of the county, which is now over half of the county. So I think that'll be a good thing for the people in that area.
Great. All right, so you can go most memorable.
What he said, I think one of the greatest things we did was we worked together during COVID. We all wore our mask, we all respected each other, and we tried our best to be as normal. I don't know how many of you have not been to the Capitol, but normally it's a busy place. And it was really eerie because there was no one there. And you could hear your heels going click, clack, all the way, to the House floor. Well, okay, maybe the guys in here, they got those rubber soles, they cheat. But let me tell you, well, except Briscoe. Briscoe, you heard yours, right?
Briscoe's.
So anyway,
Briscoe's pumps.
I just loved the way that we worked together to make sure that we got a very important job done, and we did it. So for that I'm very proud, and thought it was great.
Yeah, and also, kind of remember, we had a new speaker. We had an excellent speaker last session, and this time we had to get a new one. And I think that we had a good man that was really allowing us to work on our side of the building to really get the things that we needed to done, let us work through it. And so it was a difficult learning time for him, as well as Dr. Bonham chairing, although he's been on appropriations 5 times, chairing the committee and being the one leading those negotiations. So it was a lot of a new team, a lot of new chairmen, such as Briscoe here, chairing elections and things. So it was quite a lot of new stuff going on as well in the middle of this pandemic. And I want to reemphasize more what Greg was saying about this time in the beginning, especially the new members, especially new members of the opposite party. You don't know them as much, or from the other parts of the state. I knew the ones from Harris County, those there. So without that time of working together, sometimes we'd been on the floor 10 minutes and we would go on. We were able to work on our bills, study our bills and work on stuff a little bit more. but that time of really negotiating and working with people led to it, and some of that led to things going out and leading to the end where they could have gotten in trouble, as well as, again, reemphasizing losing a whole week out of 20 weeks. So it was a lot of challenges, a lot of different things were going on. It was a lot of difference even in the, not having dinner with everybody where you got a chance to do that as well. So it's quite challenging, and it was great to see that it come out, that we got an excellent budget, that we got a lot of good things done that we know that we needed for Texans. So I think Texans can be proud about what we've accomplished.
Right. Any other comments?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the budget too. Mary Ann beat me to it. But I do want to give Dr. Bond and Senator Nelson credit. That's not an easy task. And especially going into it when you think you're dealing with a deficit, and somehow it all worked out. One thing I wish we had, at least in the Senate, been able to debate a little bit more, and I applaud the House for even having a hearing on it, but it was a bill that I filed with John Kemple, and that was to allow Texans to vote on gaming. I think it's long overdue, and this is a initiative that would bring about 180,000 jobs in development and construction, and then 70,000 direct jobs that would continue on after that. We'd have upscale casinos with a 4- or 5-star hotel, restaurants, shops, a venue for conferences and conventions, and music and entertainment. So I've been filing this bill since 2009. This time it was nice to have bipartisan support, and Chairman John Kemple carried that. And we got it a little further down the line, and I applaud the people that the Sands Corporation for investing. They had a lot of commercials that you may have seen on TV, but I really think it's high time that Texans vote on the issue. So maybe I can twist some arms up here and get that across the finish line. I know it's going to take a couple of sessions, but I do think it's something that we ought to at least vote on. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other comments?
Yeah, one last thing I want to comment too is there's 8 constitutional amendments that are going to be on the ballot in November. So please study those. I got a list here. A nice compiled list too. Thanks to Mike Sullivan. He's always on top of things. But be glad to talk to you about any of these. I know we're short on time to mention them all, but there is 8 things that the citizens of Texas are going to have their final say on about where we go with this and make it get done. There's some good stuff here on it that needs to get done, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Briscoe, did you? Oh, I thought you were.
I don't know. Why not? Actually, there's one that kind of flew under the radar, and it being that we're in Galveston County, right? Y'all's tax assessor collector often has some great ideas, in my opinion, on property tax things. And so I'd filed House Bill 1241, which would be mandatory disaster reappraisal, and we had that put on an amendment in the House on a Senate bill, and it's become law. And so, imagine it, and I think it was a gap in a way of SB2 from last session, that imagine that the appraisals for your property come out in September and a hurricane hits next month. Well, unless your local government maybe does a resolution to allow for reappraisal, you're stuck with the value as it being reappraised. And so now it'll be mandatory, and hopefully that'll give some people relief.
Okay.
Other than that, yeah.
So we're going to just have 2 minutes. Each of you give closing comments. If Alvarado.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to brief y'all. Maybe we'll do another one of these after we get through with special sessions. Come see us, keep us company, stay in touch with us. I serve on redistricting, so I know I'll be hanging around the Capitol through the fall, so maybe the holidays, I don't know. But again, thank you for the opportunity, and I have to cut out. I've got an event in downtown I need to get to.
Okay.
So
Well,
thank you.
you for being here.
You
All right.
bet.
Let's
Thanks.
give Senator Alvarado a round of applause. Representative Perez, closing comments?
No, I just want to say thank you again for having us. It's always good to share what we worked on because you guguys can't watch it every day. Would be nice. And so, believe it or not, I have and there are a couple of mayors that I know that actually do watch us every single day and have a lot of comments about it. You'd be surprised. You may want to watch a time or two. You might find some things very interesting. So thank you very much for having us, and know that I love these guys. And, you know, I'm sure they feel the same, no matter how many times I hit Briscoe.
Dr. Bonin?
Yeah, well, look, first I just have to say how much I enjoy serving and how truly appreciative and thankful that I am for the opportunity to represent my constituents and to serve you guys. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. BAHEP is an amazing organization. It's one I wasn't really familiar with until I had run for office, but the work that they do advocating for the issues that are really important to this region is huge, and they're effective not only in Austin but in Washington as well, and I've seen them move the needle and make a difference on issues that really matter to the people in the Bay Area. So thank you guys for putting this on, but mostly thank you for your engagement year-round in everything that you do. We had an excellent session, so much that we can't really cover in an hour's period of time. Don't ever hesitate to contact us with any ideas, suggestions, recommendations. The most satisfying and some of the best stuff that I've had the privilege to work on has come from constituents and from people who've had a real life, real world experience and said, hey, do you think you could help with this? Do you think you could address that or fix that? That's where the best ideas come from. So thank you guys, and I really appreciate you having us today.
Great, thank you. Representative Paul?
Yeah, I wanted to say thanks also for having us here again, and thanks for all that y'all do for helping us and work on these very complicated and needed legislation. And I like what Greg said, about coming up and talking about it. Some of the best bills I got done is some guy came up to me after church or something and said, hey, I want to talk to you about something. We ended up passing bills. So those things happen. Never be afraid to say it. Coming up and saying we want to strike the letter M from the alphabet. Some of that stuff we're not going to do. But if you have some good ideas about what you want to get on and work on, those are always great. And it's just an honor to serve y'all. As y'all can tell, all of us, we're missing Larry today, who's always been a great leader with us. But we really enjoy working with each other. We enjoy getting the things done for working in our community. Now, I didn't think about it, but Mary Ann, that was a really great comment about we all serve on different committees. And that was really, it is something good for our region to see something done. I guess Speaker does do good stuff. And so great to be here with y'all, and thank y'all very much, and God bless.
Thank you. Representative King?
Look, we'll be seeing each other on July 8th, and if you have any complaints, please send them over to Dennis Paul's office. Otherwise, enjoy talking with you afterwards. But thank you.
All right. So we really do have a great delegation that represents this region, and they do it very passionately, and we do love to see how they get along and really the best interests of our community. And so one of my favorite quotes is from Abraham Lincoln, and it says, I like to see a man proud of the place in which he lives. I like to see a man live so that his place will be proud of him. And I have to tell you, I think we're very proud of this group. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all for being here. I also want to thank the audience for being here. Thanks for your participation. There was such great participation. We expanded the room. And I want to thank the sponsors again, Amico Federal Credit Union, Boeing, Moody Bank, and Texan Bank. And thank you all, and have a great rest of the evening. I think there's some more cocktails and drinks around and some appetizers, but thank you all. Uh-oh, that wasn't in my script. Hold on. Are you sure you're on the agenda? Okay, well, good. I thought. I was like, okay, come on up.
Yeah, I was sitting there making a couple notes, and I wanted to go back and thank the sponsors as well. Thank you so much for helping us with this. Brenda, this is your third trip up here. You're probably going to have at least one more while I'm around. Okay? So thank you so much. You do such a great job, so professional. Really appreciate you, okay? Personal thanks To all of our representatives, I'm getting myself in trouble when I say this, but I will say that this is the best group that I've worked with in my 15 years as president of this organization. Great teamwork. I know a lot of people get hung up with the D or the R behind the name, but when it comes time to work together, y'all put that aside. And y'all do what's best for this community, what's best for the state. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Great to see faces again. I want to thank all of our members. You've heard me say this 1,000 times. Without the membership, without your support, we couldn't make this happen. I want to thank our new members. We've had a wonderful year to this point. We've actually got 14 new members this year, as well as 2 cities. So I want to thank all of you. Again, Brenda, thank you. Thank you for your time. The meeting's adjourned.